Hey everyone, you're watching In the Boat with Ben TV, episode 12. I'm Ben,
And I'm Rachel.
and today we're going to share 7 practices for helping your child become a great listener. Number 1, foster a relationship with your child. Now, this seems like a given, but to the end of actually helping them become a great listener, the relationship that you have with them, the closeness, the connectedness, actually goes a long way in helping them to be more attentive to what you have to say and ready to listen and follow instructions. That's the first place to focus. Sometimes our children have trouble paying attention or they are making a decision not to listen. And it's a good thing to correct them when that happens. But the foundation of their ability to listen is in our connection with them through our relationship.
Number 2, adjust your message to include empathy. If we think about this in an adult world, we think about the ways that we listen to people and what makes us listen to people more than maybe others in our lives. And one of those things is empathy. If we feel like we're being understood, then we're more likely to listen to the person who's talking. And so the same is true in our kids' lives. If we can get on their side and help them realize we understand why they want to continue doing something or why they're so focused on getting something, then we open them to listening better because they realize that they're understood and that we're coming alongside them, but we're not an enemy of them.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're in a hurry and you need to get somewhere or there's some instruction that's really important that you need to convey. So you definitely need to pick your battles. But as much as you can, slow down and try to try to put yourself in their shoes. You know, what are they thinking right now? What's important to them? I know it's important to me, but what's important to them? What's their agenda for the day? And try to communicate with them in a way that helps them understand that you get them.
I'm not always good at this one.
Not even with her.
What does that mean?
No, I mean, I'm not good at this one with you.
Okay.
Number 3, evaluate and adjust. Now, what I mean by this is when you have something that you're going to share with your child, before you just bark out a direction or try to yell out whatever it is you're trying to say, evaluate the situation. Are they playing with some toys? Are they distracted by something? Are they listening to something else? Or are they watching television? Are they playing with their siblings? Look at the situation and then adjust your method for how you're going to communicate based on what's going on. Sometimes we've got to bark out orders. Sometimes we've got to yell to get above the noise. That's especially true in our house with 6 boys.
Yeah.
But as much as we can, we like to slow down. And it's similar to the previous practice of being empathetic. When we stop for a moment and we observe what's going on, it gives us the space we need to be empathetic and realize that they might be doing something that's pulling their attention and they're not going to be ready to listen to us right away. So we can adjust the way that we approach that so that they will be more likely to hear us and follow our instructions.
Number 4, speak more quietly. I know that when my kids aren't listening and I'm trying to give instruction or I'm just trying to tell them something, I feel the need to raise my voice. Not yell necessarily, but just get their attention. And one of the most effective things that we can do is speak more quietly. And it doesn't make sense that we can do this and it would work, but the times that I've actually touched their shoulder and gotten down on their level and just spoken in a quiet voice, they have to sort of lean forward to hear. And it helps them listen better.
It's kind of a training technique. It trains them to, when you are saying something, if it's potentially important to them and you're saying it quietly, it teaches them that they need to lean in. They need to tune into the sound of your voice. If you're constantly speaking loudly to try to get over the noise, and it's kind of got this diner effect, where you're in a diner and it's kind of busy and people are talking and there's a table over here and they're getting kind of loud. And so the whole room gets a little bit louder so they can hear over that. And over time, it just becomes this roar of noise. It's what it's like in our house
Yeah,
at
it
dinner
is.
time. Definitely. But if we can reverse that effect by modeling, being quiet, speaking quietly, training them to listen that way, then as difficult as it is not to yell sometimes, that will really help them to become better listeners.
Now, full disclosure, we own a megaphone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were messing up our voices.
All that yelling, it's bad for that. I mean, that's another good reason to speak quietly. Speak quietly into a megaphone. Number 5, avoid repetition.
Avoid repetition.
Number 5, avoid repetition. This is something that we have a really hard time with. So if our boys don't hear us the first time, we will say it again, and then we'll keep saying it. And then we wonder why it's so annoying and frustrating, and why our boys do the same thing to us. I need a glass of milk. I need a glass of milk. Now, if by not following the first few practices, you're not able to break through their distractedness or their focus, you may need to say something again. But if you say it the first time and they haven't heard it, don't allow yourself to get frustrated and feel like, okay, now I need to raise my voice and I need to say it again with more emphasis. There's probably a reason they haven't heard you, or there's a reason they decided not to listen to you. And so the best thing to do is to jump back a few steps, examine the situation, and adjust your approach so that you have the maximum effect. So it may mean that you have to put your hand on their shoulder and say, maybe even, this is kind of a fun one. My boys did this to me a lot when they were younger. If they wanted to get my attention, I was working on my laptop or something, they might come over to me and grab my face like this so that my eyes would look at them. And that physical touch, that experience of, hey, I really want your attention, can be really meaningful, and it prevents you from having to repeat yourself over and over. One of the downsides of repeating yourself over and over is that people stop listening when they hear the same thing. And it's not just the thing that you're saying, but it's the pattern of speech. So if you're constantly repeating yourself, not only are they not going to hear the one thing that you're saying in that moment, but they're going to be less likely to listen to you when you speak that way to them in the future.
I feel like the more that I repeat myself, the more hot and bothered I get. Like the more is at stake for me.
Yeah.
And so it's more likely that I will raise my voice and just not be a very effective communicator. Number 6, practice attention and focus. This is something that's really hard for kids. And before the ages of between 3 and 4, it's really hard for kids to have a whole lot of focus. But one thing that we've tried to teach our children is the art of mindfulness. And what that means is just having meditation practices that we incorporate with the kids. And there are lots of resources out there for kids and giving you practices that you can use for, say, a 2-year-old. And one of the ones that we do that is really effective is we get what's called a little breathing buddy, and they bring a stuffed animal, they put it on their stomach, and they just breathe in and out. And sometimes I'll call out things like relax your legs or relax your belly or something like that. Sometimes it's just we don't say anything at all and they just breathe. But what those meditation practices help them do is learn how to focus. We also have a bell that we ding and we challenge them to listen to the sound until they can't hear it anymore. And what that helps them do is just focus on that sound. And it's a really good practice, especially for younger kids.
And finally, number 7 is demonstrate the skill of listening as a way of teaching your child. This is actually one of the more difficult of the practices. And at the risk of coming across a little bit harsh, most of us as parents have a tendency to hold our children to an expectation when it comes to listening that we don't really hold ourselves to when it comes to listening to them. And this is kind of a natural thing. We don't necessarily do it on purpose, but the things that we have to say to them are things that are really important to us. You know, as adults, we understand how money works. We understand the importance of being on time and getting things done and keeping to a schedule and a routine. And so those things are really important to us. But we often don't hold the things that our children feel are important as as high on the list of importance. And so that causes us not to be as good of listeners to them, sometimes dismissive. And so it's just good to be aware of that tendency, because when we're aware of it, and when we're looking for opportunities to demonstrate good listening skills to our children, not only do we help them to see that what they have to say, the things that are important to them, really are important to us. We get to demonstrate that by the way that we listen to them. And when they see us demonstrate that, it shows them what it looks like for them to do that when it comes time for us to share important information with them. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you want more content like this, go to intheboatwithben.com. We host a weekly podcast there where we go into a little bit more depth on some of these topics. While you're there, sign up for our email newsletter, and we will send you a guide called Pursuing Your Passion Without Guilt. It's a 5-step checklist to get a weekly guilt-free work block. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to this channel. Thank you. I'm gonna do a little magic trick. You want to see a magic trick? All right. I'm gonna snap my fingers. I'm gonna snap my fingers, and the kids are gonna disappear. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, it worked!
Woohoo!
And I put your visor down.